Minister, Aintu has found out through parliamentary questions and through FOIs that nearly 400 people have died in homelessness just on the streets of Dublin in the last 5 years. An incredible figure. Now, the shocking thing is that the national figure is far higher, but the government refused to collect the data in any other county outside of Dublin. And the figures that I give you today don't even count those who have died, who are rough sleeping in this country, who are homeless. Those statistics are far higher. 11,754 people throughout the state currently homeless, and over 3,000 of those are children. Now, some of these children are spending their third St. Patrick's week in emergency accommodation, Minister, which has an enormous effect on those individuals. It radically changes their lives. It damages their nutrition, it damages their education, it damages their mental health and their ability to develop friendships and socialisation. And this decision to delete the eviction ban is simply going to add more people to that homeless figure in the future. And as we have this debate today, many thousands of families are living on the edge of eviction. They are petrified at the thought that the last protection is about to evaporate from them. And the numbers are stark, and even in my own county, right now there are 127 eviction notices in Meath. There are 35 rental properties available in the whole of County Meath, and there are 0 emergency accommodation beds in the local authority in County Meath at the moment. Now, Minister, do the maths. If you look at the figure throughout the state, 4,741 notices to quit in the 3 months up until the eviction ban was announced. 1,100 homes to rent in the whole of the state. 4 times the amount of households are threatened with eviction than there exists currently houses to rent. 4 times. That's extraordinary, Minister. And there's no way of arguing those figures away. Those figures simply do not add up. Now, people will have nowhere to go. People will have no alternative. And in many situations, there is a ticking time bomb for people. The worst thing about this is there's practically no contingency planning by the state. Practically no contingency planning happening at the moment to deal with this humanitarian crisis that we are on the precipice of, that is being created by an actual decision of your government. Some people will sofa hop. Some people go into the box room of their parents. Many people will rough sleep, and many people will overhold. There's no doubt about that. Under TUSLA guidelines, if you have a young family who is homeless, you must go to the local Garda station. The reason for that is because children are especially vulnerable. And by going to the Garda station, it seemingly offers them some level of protection in what otherwise would be a place of no protection. But the Gardaí themselves are on the record in saying that Garda stations are not facilities to be able to protect families who are homeless in this country. Now, today you published a long amendment to the Sinn Féin motion. And, you know, that's what it is. It's an amendment. It's not law. It's not finance. It's a reheating, in most cases, of unfulfilled pledges that have happened so far. And none of it will be implemented in the 10 days that are ticking down to the deletion of the eviction ban. None of it will be. So that crisis, despite your amendment, still looms large for those families over the next 10 days. You know, if the government meant business in this, the government would have carried out real reforms. Like, shockingly, today, there are 25,515 Airbnb short-term lets available. There are literally 21 times the amount of Airbnb lets available than there is long-term lets available to families. That's an extraordinary situation, that the system you designed means that tourists are spending their times in homes and families are spending their times in hotel rooms. Your government has, you know, gifted a zero tax rate to many, a near zero tax rate to many big international vulture funds in terms of rentals, but mom and pop rentals, they're taxed at the full level. No efforts to to change that, no effort to incentivise long-term leases by reducing the tax on those types of rentals in the later stages of those long-term leases at all. And the vacant tax still not fully implemented by your government, despite all the talk on that. Now, we in Aim2 have submitted an amendment to the Journal's office today, and that amendment seeks to put a little bit of compassion into the government's approach to this particular crisis. The amendment states that it calls on the government to make provision to ensure that no person can be evicted if they fulfil any of the following criteria: that if a tenant or a member of their family living in the rental accommodation has a disability, if the tenants are a member of their family living in the relevant accommodation has a terminal illness, a cancer diagnosis, has suffered from a stroke, has advanced heart disease, or suffers from poor mental health, if a tenant or a member of their family living in the relevant accommodation is pregnant or has given birth in the last 3 years, or if a tenant or a member of their family in the relevant accommodation is over the age of 65 years old. So, if government backbench TDs from Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens vote against this amendment of compassion, what they are voting is to allow for those cohorts of people who are most vulnerable to be evicted in big numbers in the next while. And remember that each individual TD is responsible for their vote. They're responsible for the material effect that it has on the people who will suffer directly